So it's not on, is it an addendum?
I would need, it's on the agenda.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, sorry. It's signed tonight.
That wasn't in the group.
No, I should have been, but I didn't feel it. I brought it.
And I'm like, that was my child.
I don't really. Do you want me?
I don't have that. Oh, so you mean comments?
Yeah.
I don't have any.
It's your presentation. You just
So
get
just go right into it? Okay. Do we have any? I don't see any. No.
Let me on. There's the addendum, Margaret.
Oh, okay.
This is the operation.
Thank you. Hello, good evening, everyone. We've called our meeting to order during our closed session, so we can go ahead and begin our meeting. We will start with a special public hearing and presentation on harassment, intimidation, and bullying. So can I ask Ms. Barbara Gould, our Director of Counseling, Health, and Wellness, to come up?
Sorry, we're just switching really quick. Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me? Does it sound like? There we go. Better? Not really. You can hear me? Good evening? That's better. There we go. Okay. My name is Barbara Gould, and I'm the Director of Counseling, Health, and Wellness for the district. Tonight, I'd like to share with you the Harassment, Intimidation, and Bullying Semi-Annual Report, which demonstrates the data that we have related to July 2022 through December 2022. So on tonight's agenda, what I hope to be able to convey to you this evening, I would like to talk a little bit about what is harassment, intimidation, and bullying as defined by the state of New Jersey and our anti-bullying Bill of Rights. In addition to that, to talk a little bit about some of the processes and to give an update related to the new amendments that we have in place that were just adopted in 2022. And then we'll move on to talk about some of the ways that we address HIB, or harassment, intimidation, and bullying proactively here in West Windsor-Plainsboro School District. And finally, take a look at some of the patterns and themes that have emerged in the HIB data thus far. So on January 5th in 2011, Governor Christie signed into law the Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights. And this law went into effect in September of 2011 and provided a new definition for incidents of harassment, intimidation, and bullying. And in order to meet that definition, there are several criteria that need to be met when a situation is reported in order for it to be defined as HIB. So one of the criteria is that it has to be a gesture, it could be written, a verbal or physical act, or an electronic communication, and it could be a single incident or a series of incidents. It also needs to be reasonably perceived as being motivated by either an actual or a perceived characteristic, meaning that the incident has to fall under characteristics such as appearance or race, ethnicity, gender identity, sexual orientation, etc. The incident needs to take place on school property, at a school-sponsored event, on the school bus, or off school grounds. And very importantly, it has to substantially disrupt or interfere with the orderly operation of the school or of with the rights of that student, and has to have an impact on the student as well. Then in 2022, there were amendments that were made to the Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights that have changed some of our processes as a district. We adopted this as policy in August and implemented it right away in September. And so we are in compliance with the new amendments that have been put forth. So one of the requirements of the new amendments is that we utilize a reporting form called HIB Form 338, and that we make that form available for caregivers and staff members to be able to report alleged incidents of HIB. And that has to be posted on the district website and made accessible to staff and also to caregivers who may want to report an incident. We always had a reporting mechanism as a district, so this really isn't a big change for us. We're using a different form and in compliance. However, we always had a form available for people to be able to report incidents of alleged HIB. Another change was that if a student is founded to have committed 3 incidents of HIB within a school year, then the principal, in consultation with members of the school community, counselors, assistant principal, teachers, a team, need to develop some sort of intervention plan to help support that student behaviorally, and that plan needs to be approved by the superintendent. Another change was that if school districts' policies permit the use of preliminary determination, then the superintendent would have to report out to the board how many incidents of HIB that were investigated that were utilized preliminary determination for. We have not adopted that as part of our policy, so we are not using this as a way to address incidents that have been reported to us. So we do not predetermine, which means that anything that is reported to us, we investigate as potential HIB. And in addition to that, confirmed HIB situations will be part of a student's record. This also is not any different for us. We have always had to report out to the state incidents of HIB, and therefore they have always been a part of our student records. Contact information needs to be included for the state school, for the NJDOE's state school climate coordinator, and made available to families, which has been on our district website. And that revised policies and regulations are also available to parents and families should they need to access that. And as I mentioned before, HIB Form 338 needs to be available as well and easily accessible. And so on our district website, if you scroll all the way to the bottom, we have a little icon that's called anti-bullying /HIB. And if you click on that, you can find anything and everything you're looking for related to harassment, intimidation, and bullying, including all of our forms, general information, contact information, and also links to our policies. So now I'd like to talk a little bit about what are some ways that we as a district proactively address harassment, intimidation, and bullying. And this is where we want to spend most of our time, because we want to create learning environments that are safe and conducive to learning for every one of our students. And so these are numerous ways that we proactively address HIB. So I'm going to just highlight a few because I could talk about these for a really long time. But I wanted to highlight just a couple that, really spoke to the work that we've been doing more recently. I know that you're aware that we have adopted both an equity goal and also a social-emotional goal, and I think those at the district level really drive the work that we do with curriculum, with teachers, with professional development, with opportunities that we create for students, with really looking at how do we make these experiences the best for every one of our students. Other ways are through our counseling program. We have a very comprehensive counseling program, pre-K all the way through high school. And some of the ways that our counselors work with our students are not only one-to-one in small groups, but also through classroom lessons. And they utilize our equity and SEL goals as a lens to be able to teach into different skills such as self-management, self-awareness, social awareness, some of our CASEL skills. And so that's happening in the classroom as push-in, through small groups, also in one-to-one sessions. They're supporting students socially, emotionally, and also related to mental health. And so, our counseling program also works on career and college readiness skills, and it's super comprehensive from K all the way through 12th grade. Another area where we really have been working hard on is being able to have student input and really learning from our students how things are going in relation to our school climate and our school cultures. And recently, students are now taking a school culture and climate survey, and we intend to use that data with our school-based culture and climate teams and also at the school level to take a look at how students feel about their sense of belonging, how they feel about their school environments, and ways that we could continue to improve that. We also have numerous mental health and counseling staff to be able to help support our students. We have a partnership with Rutgers Behavioral Health. We have 4 on-site clinicians that work with our students. They also run small groups. They do one-to-one counseling. They do lots of parent programming and support our students socially, emotionally, and with their mental health needs as well. And then the last one I'll highlight is just we have tons of professional development. And some of that includes proactive training specifically related to HIB. So every one of our staff members has training at the beginning of the year, from our lunch aides to our teachers to our nurses, as well as our students have training. They are exposed to the regulations and obviously age appropriate in conversations about what harassment, intimidation, and bullying is and how they can avoid that and how they can seek support if they should they feel that an incident has occurred. And refresher sessions occur all the time throughout the year as needed. For our students as well. So through training, we try to proactively address areas of HIV. So here are some of our patterns and themes from the data thus far from July 2022 through December 2022. So if we take a look at this, it shows you that we have had 120 investigations from the beginning of the year through now. 63 of those were founded and 57 were unfounded. I do want to point out that situations that are unfounded, it doesn't mean that the situation is not addressed. It just means that it doesn't meet the criteria for HIB as defined by the state. So it might be addressed through conflict resolution. It might be addressed through a code of conduct. It might be addressed through parent meeting, through support for the student. It just doesn't meet the definition. And if we take a look at the data from last year for the same time period, for the same reporting time period from July to December, you can see that we did have an increase in our investigations from 2021 to 2022. The founded versus unfounded is about the same. It's around 50% for founded versus unfounded in both years. So this slide was interesting because typically, so this slide shows you a comparison by grade level, our elementary versus middle school versus high school in terms of investigations that we've done at each of those levels. And typically what you see is that the middle level is the grade level that has the most investigations. But here we have our elementary having the most investigations. So this is a little bit different than some of the data that we've had in the past. And I think one of the reasons for that is because of the new amendment where we are not predetermining any situations and we're investigating everything as HIB. So if you look at the elementary number, it says that we've had 52 investigations. 32 of those were actually unfounded, and only 20 of them were founded. So because we're investigating everything, our numbers have kind of gone up a little bit. So in the past, a principal might have had a situation reported to him or her where, a student pushed another student on a school bus, and, that doesn't necessarily meet the criteria for HIB because there's no characteristic. Obviously, it was an inappropriate situation, and they may have just dealt with it by addressing the two kids, calling home, doing conflict resolution, reminding of safety. But now with the new amendment, we no longer can make that decision, and so everything is investigated as HIB, which is, I think, why the numbers in elementary are so much more, are higher than they've been in the past. So if we take a look at HIB investigations by locations, we can see that the classroom is the most frequently reported area where these incidents are being reported. The school bus, playground, lunchroom, hallway, some of our unstructured areas are some of the other areas where we're seeing situations being reported. And then if we take a look at investigations by characteristics of what's being reported, appearance and race and ethnicity are our most frequently reported reasons why students are reporting incidents of alleged HIB. And then you'll see one that's called no identifiable characteristic. So when I looked back at the data, because I'm like, well, what does that mean? It looks like it's many of the kindergarten through 5th grade reports of the unfounded, where it was more of like a conflict that didn't have any particular characteristic attached to it. So that's what that number is showing for no identifiable. So like the bus incident I explained to you, it wasn't based on race, gender, ethnicity, appearance, or any other religion. It was, students being more inappropriate with one another, but not related to a characteristic. So that's where that would be in that category. So here are some of the patterns. As we talked about, we've seen an increase in investigation. Our students are still adjusting after, not having been in a typical educational setting for a number of years. We're still working on social skills. We're still working on students adjusting to being back in person and interacting with their peers. And so, we very much think about that in our planning when we talk about our programming, when we talk about our classroom experiences, when we have discussion about, our strategic goals. We have that in consideration, and we're definitely working on it. Founded and unfounded, we're close to 50-50 there. Elementary, as I mentioned, was a surprising change that we've had from previous years. And then appearance, race, and ethnicity as the distinguishing characteristics were the ones that were more frequently reported. And then classroom, bus, playground, and hallway were the areas where incidents were most reported. So what does this all mean? We are very committed to making sure that all of our students are able to be educated in a safe learning environment, and we do that, by adhering to all of the regulations that are required, by training our staff, our students, by educating parents and staff members, Board of Education, and also by making sure that we're doing everything we can to establish positive school communities and, share the harassment, intimidation, and bullying expectations with our students, and really, to have a commitment to the safety and respectful behavior from everyone. So thank you for your attention, and does anyone have any questions?
Go ahead, Dana.
Thank you so much. It was very comprehensive and explained a lot of things. I appreciate that. I just had a question about the school record point. What does that mean? So, like, if you're like in elementary school and your child is has a founded HIB event, where does that go? And because I think parents might want to know, like, does it travel with you all the way through till you graduate? Does it go to other places, other than WWP? So if you could clarify that, thank you.
Our student information system that we utilize is Genesis. All of our incidents of both harassment, intimidation, and bullying, and really any type of conduct incident is put into Genesis. The only people that have access to that are administrators that can see that particular area of Genesis. And so, administrators are able to follow and take a look at that. In terms of where does it go, we don't report or send that information out to anyone. We are required by the state to report it out, but it's based off of, student ID numbers, nothing that is identifiable. And in terms of if a student, let's say, is applying to a private school, unless that school specifically asks us for the student's conduct, we don't send any of that information anywhere.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yep, Liz?
I just had a quick question. Do the accounts also take consideration of after-school activities, clubs, boards, or the extended day program?
Yes. Any incidents that are reported as alleged HIB, whether it's taking place during the school day, at home, as long as, there's an impact on school, it is investigated within the school setting. So yes, our extended day program, there are numbers that are represented in there from that program, as well as if something happens in athletics or clubs, we investigate it within the day.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yep, Lori?
Just a question about the 338 form.
Yes.
So if someone, say, an incident happened and a parent wanted to reach out, I think typically they would have just picked up the phone and called the school. Like, what would that process look like now? Because it
Sure.
seems like they have to fill out this form as well.
So the way that we've been working it is if a parent calls, we still take down their information, and we're required to initiate an investigation whether they fill out the form or not.
Okay.
Like once we receive a report, an administrator could fill out the form, the teacher could fill out the form. We do send the form to the parent, and many of them do return it to us filled out after we've had that initial conversation. But if they don't return it, we still go through with the investigation, and it's just filled out by somebody else.
And just another question, then a separate one with the school and culture survey. I think that's great to get student input. Is that something that the district is looking to do every year, or what's the?
Typically, we've done it in a 3-year cycle. So we haven't done it, I believe the last time was in 2019, because then it was supposed to be done, and then COVID happened, so we weren't able to do it. So this is the first time since 2019, but it's typically done every 3 years.
And then the last one, because I was surprised with the elementary school number, because I know the last year, I'm like, oh, it's usually the middle school. I guess maybe just looking at that number, is there something different that would happen with? I mean, because you guys do a really great job. I'm just wondering, because of the number being so high with that age group now, is there something that you would look at differently?
I really think for that particular age group, it's a result of us not being able to work out incidents without going through a whole investigation process. Because, a kindergarten and a kindergarten have a disagreement, we typically can just do a conflict resolution and do teaching into it, which we still do. But now we have to go through a process and report out that it's an alleged hip, right? And most of those are unfounded. Yeah. So we're just spending a lot more time investigating.
Thanks, Loy. Any other questions? Shweta?
I see that there's a lot of interventions done with the students that are consistently accused of bullying. Can you share a little bit about the supports that are offered for the victims?
So as part of the process, we also include some sort of support for the victim as well. It could be, a meeting with their counselor. It could be peer mediation if they agree to that. It could be a restorative practice where they, obviously with their permission if they're in agreement. So it could be any of those things. But there's usually some sort of support for the victim as well. And that is, we document that as well as part of our process.
Thank you. Any other questions from board members?
Okay, thank you so much.
Great. Thank you. So we're now going to turn to the special opportunity for public comment, and this is just on the harassment, intimidation, and bullying report that you just heard. There will be a separate public comment period later on. So this particular public comment period is just for this report. So the board invites thoughts and reactions on the harassment, intimidation, and bullying report from members of our community who are present. Each participant is asked to give his or her name and address prior to making a statement, which will be limited to 3 minutes in accordance with Board Policy 0167. All statements shall be directed to the presiding officer. This public comment period shall be limited to 15 minutes. So do we have any public comments on this report? Okay. Oh, if you have any comments, if you can come up to the podium for any public comments.
Hi, my name is Helene Varnavas. I live at 33 Ginny Lane in West Windsor. Just 2 questions regarding the HIB. There was mention made of characteristics such as race, gender, appearance, and such, and then that sometimes they don't really find identifiable characteristics. So I'm trying to understand whether or not, if there is a bullying incident, but there's no identifiable characteristic, does that mean it's not covered by HIB? That's what I'm just a little confused about that. And then the second question I had was whether or not the bullying is simply student to student, or could it be staff or teacher, or some sort of professional to student, or could it be vice versa? Because we just keep talking about the students. So those are just 2 questions I had, not necessarily concerns, but just questions that I think need some clarification. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments on the report, specific to the report?
I'll come back later, but it's interesting you're talking about HIB. Is abuse of power by the superintendent considered some kind of a harassment of parents? Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other comments on the harassment, intimidation, and bullying report? Okay. Hearing none, I will close this public comment portion.
With respect to the 2 questions, if there is an incident that occurs that is not found to be associated with a specific characteristic, it may not meet the state's definition of HIB, but that does not mean it's not an inappropriate conduct, and it could still fall under the discipline code of conduct established by the Board of Education and enforced at the school. So you could have an incident where someone's making fun of someone's clothing, and it might not fall under a specific distinguished characteristic, but it could still be an inappropriate conduct, and a student could still receive a consequence. The second question was respect to staff to student, and you can have a an HIB complaint that potentially comes forward alleging a staff member has bullied a student. That does happen on occasion, infrequently, but on occasion, and that gets investigated. The difference is the anti-bullying coordinators at the school are often counselors and association members with teachers. So in that case, the lead investigator becomes the assistant principal or the principal. And so we do that. There's not a reverse, though. If a staff member that alleges a student would not fall under HIB, and a parent to a staff member, if a parent is abusing the superintendent, for instance, it wouldn't fall under HIB, and no different than if a teacher and a parent were having a disagreement, it wouldn't fall under HIB.
Thank you, Dr. Adams. Okay, so we're now going to move to approval of the report. Can I have a motion to approve and accept the July 1, 2022 to December 31, 2022 District Semi-Annual Report of Harassment, Intimidation, and Bullying as required by the New Jersey State Department of Education under the Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights Act? Liz and Louisa. Any questions or comments? Okay, Chris?
Okay, we'll start with Ms. Bonsall.
Yes.
Okay, next is Ms. Chiniera.
Yes.
Ms. Ho.
Yes.
Ms. Krug.
Yes.
Ms. Maliga.
Yes.
Ms. Shetty.
Yes.
Ms. Zovich.
Yes.
Ms. McEwen.
Yes.
And Ms. Juliana.
Yes.
Okay, motion approved.
All right, so that adjourns our special public hearing on harassment, intimidation, and bullying. So we will now move to our regular agenda to presentations and reports. We have a district testing report update from Dr. Pam Nathan.
Good evening. I have the pleasure and the responsibility of sharing the remaining portion of the testing presentation. These results were not available earlier, hence tonight's presentation. Starting with the assessment overview, it's important to note what is highlighted. The information provided by this assessment is a snapshot of a student's understanding and should only be used with other supporting evidence when drawing any conclusions about a student's overall academic performance. Here you see the Start Strong test design. If you notice, in this slide, the state is essentially giving its own disclaimer. Additional considerations for interpreting any results from the Start Strong assessment. These considerations come directly from the state. Notice the emphasis on not comparing this data to any other data. Our district had strong participation in the Start Strong assessment. On average, nearly 92% of all of our test takers took this assessment. This slide shows those participation levels. Just to provide you with some background, here are the only scores that are the result of the Start Strong assessment. Students can score within a level 1, 2, or 3. All levels have wording of support may be needed, whether it's strong support, some support, or less support, regardless of where you're scoring. Seen here are our ELA, our English Language Arts, support levels in grades 4th through 10th. And this slide represents our math support levels as identified by the Start Strong assessment. And shown here are our science scores in grades 6, 9, and 12. We can further we can further look at our students through our subgroups and our demographic groups in our English language arts portion of the assessment. This data highlights the work we are doing in equity and strategic goals as we continue to progress and work through supporting all of our students. Here are the subgroup and demographic breakdown through our math results. And finally, our science. As in the larger testing presentation, notable achievements, strategies, and interventions are a component. Here you can see some of those notable achievements from offering high-quality instruction all the way through the pandemic to providing adult English language learner classes for caregivers and parents of our students, to intensive summer literacy programming, just to name a few. And in closure, here are a few intervention strategies. In addition, our teams target instruction and set goals by using multiple sources of data. So as I mentioned, this is a component that would have been included in that larger testing presentation if we had had the information at the time. So hence its brevity. But thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Nathan. Are there any questions from board members? Yes, Liz?
Thank you for your presentation. I just had a question with regard to, I guess, the subgroups. I guess on slide, I think it's slide 13, the ones that refer to English learners, students with disabilities, for English language arts, mathematics, and science. So it shows that strong support is needed for those subgroups. So what may we consider possibly, or what's the next step, or how do we approach this?
Sure. And similar to the slide for intervention strategies for our English language learners, one strategy that we utilize district-wide is the SIOP model. So that's the Sheltered Instruction Observation Protocol. Those are strategies that help students who are acquiring English language throughout their school day in any of the content areas. So it's really a way to provide those strategies as they're learning English. And certainly, if we were to take an assessment in a country that wasn't a language that we were as familiar with, you could see why there might be some struggle on that assessment. We also have access testing, which was part of that larger presentation earlier in the school year, where you can see that we have exited many of our students. So once they reach that proficiency level, they're able to have the strategies and utilize those strategies without the support of being in our English language learning program anymore. And that's ultimately our goal. This assessment is given regardless of the stage in your English language learning that you're in.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from board members? Louisa?
Is Start Strong done, or is it going to continue to happen? This was a pandemic testing program, right?
Great question. We all have that question. There's been speculation that it's tied to our ESSER funding, and that's the ESSER funding that is across all school districts. So that funding is set to be finalized in the '24 school year, the summer '24. So it's potential that we may have this assessment for an additional year, and after that, we may not see it again, but it's just speculation at this point. The state hasn't made that determination.
Any other questions from board members? Dana?
Thank you for your presentation. This is a little bit unrelated. I was wondering if they're doing state performance reports again, resuming those, and if they're, when those will be out, or if they're currently embargoed, or what the status of that is.
Are you referring to a state comparison of these results to districts, or do you mean our overall testing data? That's part of the school report card. There's a website for all of our schools with school report cards across the state of New Jersey.
When are the ones from last year going to be out? That was the question.
I have to check that site. They may be available already.
I looked for them earlier this week. I didn't see them, but maybe there's another way to get them. So, thanks.
Any other questions from board members? Okay. Okay, thank you, Dr. Nathan. Okay, that now takes us to the first opportunity for public comments. The board invites thoughts and reactions on agenda items and items of concern from members of our community who are present. Each participant is asked to give his or her name and address prior to making a statement, which will be limited to 3 minutes in accordance with Board Policy 0167. All statements shall be directed to the presiding officer. This public comment period shall be limited to 60 minutes. Any public comments?
Greetings for the evening. By the way, quickly, HIB does involve when people share space or purpose and they come together. Somebody has power, somebody doesn't. It could be physical power, it could be authority power. Anyway, I'm back here to advocate for my daughter, and I'm expecting some definitive on-camera answer from the superintendent. On September 30, we got an email from the Director of Data Assessment and whatever her long title is. And in that math NJSLA, at the bottom of the first page, which I emailed the superintendent on December 15, it says, if your student took the assessment several times under similar circumstances, your student would likely score within the range between the reported scores, scale score, plus or minus 8 points. They don't use the word margin of error, but that's what it is. Now, the superintendent has interjected something which is actually very a question of his credibility, or I don't know what it is, but he will explain himself. So I write this to him on 15th of December. He responds leisurely on 20th of December. And I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'm going to read what is pertinent. That I have followed up with Mrs. Bean, the math supervisor, for K-12, for 612, for further clarification. In 2015, the district set an entrance score of 795 and then applied a standard deviation which opened the cut score to 786 to capture a larger swath of students. Fine. 795 has not been substantiated. He asked me to do an OPRA, nothing has come out. So where is this number coming from? In the district or the math supervisor, I don't know if she's here, math supervisor just can't make up numbers. You know, you remind me like the Kohl's store. They will jack up the sweater price for $200 and you walk home with $25 and you feel good, you got a $200 sweater for $25. They cheat. The stores cheat us and we all fall prey for it. Anyway, I don't buy in Kohl's, but I do go there sometimes. So this is not Kohl's, sir. This is a proper school district. So where did you get the 795 from? Please answer on camera. And then there's one more email that he sent, which is nice actually, because he doesn't bother to respond. So here's the last one he sent on 23rd December, if I can even bother to open it. And if not, I have to come back. Oh, hold on, it's here. Oops, too many. Okay, so here it is. In that email again, he insists, now he is trying to, what circular logic he is using, you can explain, on camera please, if you can. I do not accept your statistical interpretation. It's not my statistical interpretation. Margin of error has been there ever since statistics was invented. So right there, he is off. If one last
Mr.
line,
Bidwai.
Madam, sir, Madam, please, one last line. If accepted, your faulty logic and if I accepted your faulty logic and apply the standard deviation of the SLA assessment, then we would need to remove the standard deviation from 2015.
Okay, Mr. Bidwai, thank you.
Anyway, I'll come back, but the whole thing is.
Thank you. Okay, are there any other comments? Okay, hearing none, I will close the public comment portion.
All right, so for large framing for the public, H&A mathematics, you can qualify 3 different ways, right? You have to score and meet the qualifications on 2 of 3. A member of our community that's raising concern is raising it on 1 assessment, so for a specific reason. There is a cut score of 786. That's our score. There is no NJSLA standard deviation that gets applied. That is a made-up workaround by the community member that came to the podium so that he can attempt to work around the well-established cut scores that have been utilized since 2016-17, set in 2015-16 school year. For those of us that have been in the district for any length of time, there was a comprehensive conversation and process that went through at the time. Ms. Bean was part of that. Several of our math teacher resource specialists that taught H&A, or at the time A&E mathematics, were part of that. Several of our administrators, building administrators, were part of that. And Martin Smith, our then assistant superintendent of curriculum instruction, oversaw that process. The scores were analyzed based on the students in the program at the time. The 795 was the lowest score, and we then applied a standard deviation from that to 786. What Mr. Bidwell wants me to do is apply a double standard deviation from NJSLA to our 786, which already has a standard deviation based on district data involved. We're not doing that. No, your time was, you'll come back at the end like normal. I'll say no again. And we're done this since August. The answer is still no. We're not changing the schedule, and you can keep coming back the entire year, and the answer will not change. And so he's working to manipulate scores so that he can get what he wants. And the answer is no. We're not changing it. Well established, we have done this every year. We more than doubled the entrance of students into the program starting in 16-17. As a result of having multiple criteria, we used to have 1 assessment. We then went to 3 assessments. Students had to qualify on 2 assessments. We doubled the number of students into the program and have followed that criteria since 2015-16 when it was established through. There was an OPRA request that was requested, and an OPRA request for the public is an Open Public Records Act where you ask for the district to produce data or something that's created. It has to be established, it has to be created. We don't have to make something up to answer a question. And data doesn't have to be held for a length of time. There is no statute of limitations. So when I was asked for a data at the end of a meeting, I said, I don't know if it's available, ask an OPRA request. The fact that there's not substantial data or that there's not a responsive record doesn't mean we didn't have a process 8 years ago when Mr. Smith ran a comprehensive process. And we followed that data all the way through to today. It's an attempt by an individual to manipulate a process to get what they want. I've answered on camera as you asked.
Thank you, Dr. Adderholm. All right, so we will now move to our committee reports. Administration Facilities Committee. Nina?
Ooh, that's very creaky sounding. Okay. The Administration and Facilities Committee met on Tuesday, January 17th. Since this was our first meeting of the new year, post-board reorganization, the committee reviewed its role, and Dr. McDonald provided an overview of the A&F committee while highlighting frequent agenda items, including the review of Board of Education policies and regulations, agreements and contracts, updates regarding the referendum, school safety and security, human resources and athletics, and the district's strategic plan for equity. Next, we discussed the 3 regulations for a first reading. The first one is bomb threats, second is lockdown procedures, and the third is active shooter. And 3 policies for a second reading and board approval tonight. Policy 8467 on weapons, policy P1122 on benefits covering non-affiliated administrative employees, category A, and P4420 benefits covering non-affiliated support staff, category B. And 2 policies will be abolished on tonight's agenda, and that is P1648.11, which is the road forward COVID-19 health and safety, and P1648.13, school employee vaccination requirements. The next topic we discussed was the 2024-25 academic calendar. Additional stakeholder feedback was discussed with the committee. An updated version of the 2024-2025 academic calendar was reviewed and will be reviewed and be final for the Board of Education approval in February. The committee discussed the district's Class 3 officer program and shared service agreements with both townships. These are on tonight's board agenda for approval. Next, the committee got an update on several construction projects, including the ones at High School South, Community Middle School, and the High School North Dance Studio, which are all closing out. Drywall and ceiling installation for the High School North Media Center and Culinary Arts Room has started. Phase 1 construction at the Wyckoff School, including the addition of kindergarten classrooms and support services office, is also closing out. Phase 2, permitting, including a renovation of the main office, this is also at Wyckoff, and media center is underway. Finishing has begun at the Millstone River School Media Center, while electrical work for the Dutch Neck School Media Center is underway. The district continues to update outdated language and current job descriptions. The committee reviewed descriptions for the Assistant Superintendent for Finance and Board Secretary, Assistant Superintendent for Pupil Services and Planning, a Transition Coordinator, Director of Community Education, EDP Assistant Group Leader, EDP Group Leader full and part-time, EDP High School Assistant, and EDP Site Supervisor. The committee recommends the revised job descriptions for approval on tonight's agenda. Next, we reviewed the calendar of proposed committee meeting dates for the remainder of 2023, and our next committee meeting will be on February 6th.
Thank you, Dana. Are there any questions from board members? Okay. Next, we'll go to the Curriculum Committee report. Lily?
Thanks, Rachel. The Curriculum Committee met on January 17th. We began the meeting with Ashley Warren and Carl Cooper, who shared the dual language immersion data and program overview with the committee since the program's inception and through the current school year. Our students, on average, are thriving at and above grade level expectations in the DLI program. Then Dr. Nathan shared the draft presentation on the Start Strong results, which she presented tonight. The information would have been part, again, as she said, of the mandatory testing presentation she did earlier in the school year, but the results were not available at the time. And the presentation is a requirement of the Department of Education. Next on the agenda for voting tonight, the Curriculum Committee recommends approval of the Community Education Spring-Summer 2023 Youth and Adult Programs, which are listed in tonight's agenda. The Curriculum Committee also recommends the approval of several summer courses this summer, 2023. First course we recommend is the approval of the district's financial literacy course at a cost of $350 per student, and upon successful completion, students will receive 2.5 credits. The second course recommended for approval is the district's Introduction to Discrete Math at a cost of $500 per student. And again, upon successful completion, students will receive 2.5 credits for that course. The third course is that we recommend for approval is the district's Topics in Discrete Math course at a cost of $500 per student. And again, 2.5 credits upon successful completion students will receive. The fourth course for the summer, the curriculum committee recommends approval of the district's Introduction to Data Science course at a cost of $500 per student, and again, 2.5 credits upon successful completion for students who take that course. Let's see, next, with regard to the financial literacy course, summer course, the curriculum committee recommends approval of Apex Learning to provide an online platform to host a financial literacy summer course at a cost not to exceed $125 per student. Moving on to field trips. The curriculum committee recommends approval of the following field trips for High School South. First, the Model Congress to Harvard University from the 23rd of February through the 26th, and the cost of the trip is approximately $650 per student. Next, for High School South again, the Junior Statesman of America to Washington, D.C. from the 24th to the 26th of December, and the cost of that trip is approximately $600 per student. Moving on to professional development travel approval, we have the committee recommends approval for 2 administrators to attend Techspo 23 in Atlantic City on the 25th of January through the 27th at a cost not to exceed $1,120 per person, including travel. And professional development again, the curriculum committee recommends approval of the following professional development. The first one is Day in Clay. Sounds fun. To facilitate 1 full day of professional development session to district art teachers on February 17th at a cost not to exceed $2,300. And the second is for Kayla McLaughlin to facilitate a 4.5-hour professional development session for district music teachers, also on the 27th, and the cost not to exceed $1,200. We also have a list here of proposed future dates for the curriculum committee, and the next meeting for our committee will be Tuesday, February 21st. Thank you.
Thank you, Loy. Any questions from board members? Okay. We'll go to Finance Committee report. Louisa?
Sure. The Finance Committee met on January 17th. The committee reviewed agenda items for tonight's meeting, including bill lists, the secretary's report, disposal of several items that are past their life expectancy, change orders for the high school south pool bubble installation, additional electric work for the high school north media center and culinary arts room, and media center renovations at Millstone and Dutch Neck. There are also several transportation items on the agenda for approval and reimbursement for employee travel. Staff provided an update on construction projects that included at High School North for the Media Center and Culinary Arts renovation. Work continues with framing and drywall installation in the Media Center. Ceiling grid wiring is taking place as well. At both High School North and South, staff are continuing discussions about the dance floor material. We also talked about Wyckoff and the Media Center renovations at Millstone and Dutch Neck, which Dana already briefed you on. The next Media Center projects to be advertised are at Hawk, Town Center, and Village Elementary, with an expected end of June start date. The pool bubble at High School South has been installed, and we are waiting for inspections to take place before we can begin using it. The committee discussed the continuation of our program to have Class 3 police officers in the schools. The 5-year contract is up for renewal, and another 5-year contract is proposed. The new contract will offer a $1 per hour increase over the life of the contract. The pay inflator is needed to keep our current Class 3 officers. More districts are starting security programs and are paying more than we are currently paying. Staff also provided an update on cafeteria operations. The number of meals served declined during the month of December, presumably due to the holiday break. The number of breakfasts served decreased to 453, down 24 from the prior month. Lunches served dropped from 42,969 to 41,968, a decrease of 1,001. Sodexo is expecting to hire a permanent lead for Wyckoff by the end of the month. Currently, a Sodexo resource manager is covering the position. They are also expecting to hire an additional 6 to 8 staff members that are going through background checks. The equipment purchased with grant money for the food services has been trickling in and is being installed as it arrives. We have spent $113,000 of the supply chain assistance funds through the end of December on foods that meet the eligibility criteria for these funds. For the holidays, Send Hunger Packing with Mercer Street Friends donated 24 food bags to secondary students, and 100 ShopRite gift cards in the amount of $25 were donated to elementary students. Meetings are ongoing to prepare the 23-24 budget. An updated budget calendar was presented. The administration is concerned about the impact of the very high rate of inflation. The board's budget retreat is scheduled for March 2nd. The committee discussed potential committee meeting dates. There are a few conflicts with dates already scheduled for labor negotiations. Under other business, the administration updated the committee on the district's spending of ESSER funds. ESSER funds are federal emergency COVID funding for elementary and secondary schools. 97% of the district's first round of funds has been spent. 37% of the second round of funds have been spent to date, and there are plans to use the remaining funds. Staff reported that the executive county business administrator walked through our schools on January 17th as part of the New Jersey Quality Single Accountability Continuum process. During the inspection, the administrator commented that the buildings are very safe and clean. Staff worked very diligently to prepare for the inspection. The committee will next meet on Tuesday, February 21st.
Thank you, Louisa. Are there any questions from board members? Liz?
I just wanted to acknowledge also, or just express appreciation to the Send Hunger Packing Program and what it's been doing over the past few years for our district families. Thank you.
Thanks, Liz. Thanks, Liz. Any other comments or questions? Okay. All right, so we'll now move to the voting portion of our meeting. Can I have a motion for administration items 1 through 12? Dana and Robin. Any questions or comments? Chris?
Okay, we'll start with Ms. Cheniera.
Yes.
Ms. Ho.
Yes.
Ms. Krug.
Yes.
Ms. Maliga.
Yes.
Ms. Shetty.
Yes.
Ms. Dovich.
Yes.
Ms. Bonsall.
Yes.
Ms. McEwen.
Yes.
Ms. Juliana.
Yes.
Okay.
Right, we now move to curriculum, items 1 through 4. Can I have a motion for those items? Loy and Pooja, any questions or comments? Okay, Chris?
Okay, we'll start with Ms. Ho.
Yes.
Ms. Krug.
Yes.
Ms. Maliga.
Yes.
Ms. Shetty.
Yes.
Ms. Dovich.
Yes.
Ms. Bonsall.
Yes.
Ms. Cheniera.
Yes.
Ms. McEwen.
Yes.
Ms. Juliana.
Yes. Right, we now move to finance items. Can I have a motion for finance items 1 through 13 plus the blue addendum, Louisa and Shweta? Any questions or comments? Chris?
Okay, we'll start with Ms. Krug.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, first Ms. Okay, and next is, next is Ms. Maliga,
Yes.
Ms. Shetty,
Yes.
Ms. Zovich,
Yes, but I'm going to abstain from C1A, please.
C1A, yes,
Thank
got it. Ms. Bonsall,
Yes.
Ms. Cheniera,
Yes.
Ms. Ho,
Yes.
Ms. Krug,
Yes.
Ms. McEwen,
Yes.
and Ms. Juliana.
Yes. Right, can I have a motion for personnel items 1 through 5 plus the green, purple, yellow, and pink addendums? Liz and Graylin, any questions or comments? Chris?
Okay, we'll start with Ms. Maliga,
Yes.
Ms. Shetty,
Yes.
Ms. Zovich,
Yes.
Ms. Bonsall,
Yes.
Ms. Cheniera,
Yes.
Ms. Ho, Ms. Krug,
Yes.
Ms. McEwen,
Yes.
Ms. Juliana.
Yes. And I would like to recognize retirement that we recently voted on. Louis Brotman, an accountant from Central Office, is retiring after 27 years in the district. So Louis, just want to thank you so much for your years of service and the best wishes for you in your retirement. So thank you. Okay, we'll now move to approval of the minutes. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes for December? Shweta and Pooja? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions?
Oh, yeah, me.
Yeah, abstain? Okay.
Oh, abstain, sorry, yeah.
Lori is abstaining, all right. Any board liaison reports? Any new business? Okay, that leads us to the second opportunity for public comments. The board invites comments from members of our community who are present. Each participant is asked to give his or her name and address prior to making a statement, which will be limited to 3 minutes in accordance with Board Policy 0167. All statements shall be directed to the presiding officer. This public comment period shall be limited to 15 minutes. Are there any public comments?
Madam President, regretfully, the superintendent has misled the people on camera, and I will clarify how. Number one, yes, I did 2 operas. The first opera produced about 80 to 100 documents. So his argument that there is no particular document with 795 is unacceptable. It's misleading. Number 2, the 2 emails that he sent me are terrible. I circulated it to 5 people in US and 1 in Canada. I spoke to them on the phone, and they told me your superintendent is conflating the standard deviation with margin of error. And whatever happened 8 years ago is not to be applied. The only number parent-facing is 786, madam. Therefore, the margin of error applies on 786. He can argue up until June, but he's going to be wrong, and he's going to prove himself wrong on camera, and he will invite ridicule. And I'm not here to play a game like this, okay? The megaphone that I brought, I will not do it yet, but I intend to stand in front of CMS and do public protest because he is wrong. And there is no other way to explain to him. I'm not going to hire a $1,000 statistician to come here and educate you when you're a board of education. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments?
With respect to the Oprah request that had 200 documents, the request was specifically for student data information of the last several years of 6th, 7th, 8th graders, and we had to redact student names, whatnot, so Mr. Bidwa could attempt to prove his point, which he was not able to do. With respect to his consultation, he sent me 4 versions of ChatGPT to prove his point with his own data that he fed into a system. Your time's over, sir.
Okay.
Your time is over.
Right,
You're disrupting a meeting. You can be removed for that.
Okay.
You can be removed for disrupting a board meeting.
All right, so Mr. Bidwai, you made your public comments, so yeah, okay. No, you've already come on, so. All right, are there any other, are we good? Okay. Can I have a motion to adjourn? Loy and Louisa, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.